Hello, everyone. Welcome to I Love Myself Fix presents Coming Into Grace, a new podcast hosted by mother and son duo at Courtney's Fix and at Asha's Fix. And today we're joined by Johnny Drake. What time is it there, Johnny?
10:10.
10:10. And how was waking up for you this morning?
Good. I've been doing a workout for since these protests started. So I'm about a month into it, and the first 3 weeks I did 7 days a week. Now I just don't work out on Sundays. So
That's
today is
good.
my first Sunday that I didn't work out.
And you
Watch
enjoy
out,
it?
watch out. No, you're going to get his tail. Okay,
Such a
so.
punk. Such a punk.
Okay.
The cat's trying to push his
He's
way
very
through
forceful, and
Yeah.
he uses all of his weight. Come here, D. Come meet Johnny.
You got one of the Rhodesians? No.
The Selkirk's Rex.
This is the cat, and what he does is this little brother right here. He knows how to open the door, and he uses all 9 pounds to press on the door.
Was it
And-
leather?
Or
Uh-huh.
he sticks his finger and he can sort of move the door around, sort of mess up the jam. And so what he does is, and if it's ajar, or if not, he throws his entire body against the door and bangs his feet till I open it. I mean, it sounds like a storm. Like, woman, I know you're in there, open the door. And I'm like, dude, go to bed. So I guess he saw you. And then his new thing is, if he hears me talking, then his thing is, that's his shot. So there you go, John. So he tried to get in the door, but almost lost half his tail.
Yeah, that was my
Ash was pushing it, but he was going to lose his tail. So I'm sorry. So you've been doing your workout, and then now you were doing it 7 days a week, and then now he's doing 6 days a week.
And what else do you use to keep yourself sane and healthy through this pandemic?
I started cooking a lot. And then it's a lot of fun, but the cleanup is not fun. So, I've gotten it down where I used to cook and use every dish and every utensil in the house, and now I just take out exactly what I need and, use the same things over and over again.
What are you cooking?
Let me show you. I can text it to you right now. You can put it up.
Wonderful.
This is what I'm making today, actually.
I love that you already have something set out.
Oh, yeah.
That's nice.
Johnny's a good cook. Sometimes he sends me pictures.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, Johnny, do you have any siblings?
No, I have it's a half brother in Chicago.
Okay. So you've lived your entire life being.
I was born and raised in Chicago, and when I was in high school, Chicago started getting to be a little rough, and I never got in any big trouble, but a few fights, and my mom was like, "We're moving to California."
Got it.
So 2 years of high school in Chicago, 2 years in California.
Okay.
So it was a big change, going from the south side of Chicago to Marin County.
Oh, wow. To Marin, you got nothing.
And the high school had a Porsche club. So yeah, it was a big change.
And what was the hardest change? Were the people, the environment, the school?
The environment, I think, Chicago, I think still is, the south side of Chicago, I believe, still is the largest black neighborhood in the country. And then moving from there to Marin wasn't only culture shock, there was a lot going on. For example, on one of the first days of school, one of the white kids started breakdancing or pop locking in front of me, like challenging me, and we didn't do that in Chicago. I didn't know what it was. And I thought he was just taunting me. So we started fighting and got sent to the principal's office, and luckily the principal was from Chicago.
Oh.
And, you know, we started talking and he said, where are you from? And I told him in Chicago. He's like, oh, I got this. He's like, I figured this whole thing out, like, right now. Like, okay, I get it. Like, he's not getting suspended.
Mm.
So, yeah, it was, but after that, everything was smooth sailing. You know, I think it was like a really, you know, when you're at that age, you don't want to move. You have all your friends, and I think in the end, it was probably the best move that my mom could have made.
In terms of your spirit, I mean, and this, you know, this is a slightly unfair question, but but where do you feel more comforted, Northern California or Chicago?
Chicago by far.
Mm-hmm.
The comfort level in California is just some friends and my mom, but that whole family thing is Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way she's going back to Chicago. So, yeah, home is Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And what kinds of different lessons did you learn in Chicago and separately in California? How did they?
Did what in California?
Lessons. What kinds of lessons did you learn in Chicago that differed in California, and how did those lessons shape who you are or change how you looked at things?
Well, from a racial point of view, you know, everybody in Chicago was black. The mayor was black. You went to the dentist was black. Everybody was black. And, you know, you go to California, and luckily my grandfather, who was very aware of certain things, and when we left, he said, when you get there, go to the police station and introduce yourself. Let them know, you know, that you live there and you want to meet the commanding officer and introduce yourself. And I thought that was strange, but I did it, and I think it helped out.
No, yeah, I bet.
But when you grow up in Chicago, you don't have to do that because, you know, everybody's black. Yeah.
And everybody was from the neighborhood, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And the neighborhood was so vast. When I say neighborhood, I mean, I'm talking, my neighborhood was, you know, just a square mile or so. But the neighborhood, meaning the south side of Chicago, is, I mean, bigger than Oakland.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, I never realized that.
So, yeah, I guess there's 3 million people in Chicago, and the south side is over 1 million people. You know, that's, bigger than Oakland.
I'm glad you put it that way. I never thought about it like that.
Mm-hmm.
I always, you know, go to sort of the same couple of miles.
Yeah.
But, geez. Wow, that has a whole different.
Yeah, you could drive for miles and miles, and yeah, you're still in the neighborhood, so to speak.
Okay.
What's something that you still find yourself loving to do that you did when you were a child that you still do now that still brings a smile across your face?
Reading certain things, something I've consistently done. I picked up a basketball for the first time in a couple years, and went out and you know, using basketball muscles is different than every other muscle. You know, I've been working out, but I didn't feel pain like I did after, you know,
That's funny.
playing some hoop. You can lift weights and run and get on the bicycle and jump rope, but it's different than playing some hoop. You know, you use muscles that you haven't used in a long time, and it can be painful.
No, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's one thing I missed, but something I've consistently done is, I'm some reading, some, you know, keeping in touch with family, things that, you know, bring you joy.
It's beautiful.
So Well, because Johnny is such an interesting person to talk to. When you trying not to touch this, but I want what
Touch it.
all right. So what do you want for current times politically? What would you like? What do you think could be realistic, almost from a gambling, and I say gambling perspective because to some degree it ends up turning into that when it turns into the numbers. And what would you like to see turn out in the next 6 months?
Well, I've kind of came to the realization a long time ago that, say, for example, this whole Black Lives Matter movement that's going on about police brutality. You know, I always thought that it's never going to stop because, in my opinion, there's only two ways that it would stop. One is 3 or 4 of these cops would have to get convicted and sent to jail, and then cops would stop doing that stuff. And I just don't think that that's going to happen. So the other way is you do like Black Lives Matter. You kind of take it into your own hands. And it's like the only option that you have because what we've been doing for so long just isn't working. These killings keep happening. Mm-hmm. And you have to do something different. And this movement is something different. Mm-hmm. And different in a whole lot of ways. You know, one of the ways that makes it really different is that there's no leader to this movement. And I actually kind of like that because one can be corrupted. You know, it's a bad analogy, but it kind of works like an al-Qaeda cell. You know, they got like these cells that pop up all over the country and no one knows who the leader is. And I think it's actually more effective than what we've always used, which is, you know, to put someone out there who can be corrupted or sell us out. So that movement, yeah.
Or kill.
Yeah. And at first I was like, these kids don't know what the hell they're doing. And then I started thinking like, wow, this is happening. You know, I always thought like, you know, we almost lost a generation. Like, you know, these kids are sagging and they're doing this crazy mumble rap and like, you know, I was just getting kind of frustrated. But when I see them out there fighting, I was like, wow, this spirit is not gone at all. And they're, you know, it's like our parents were looking at us, listening to Public Enemy, and like, you guys are so angry. And now I'm like, well, these kids are angry, but it's the same kind of vibe. It's the same spirit that hasn't left.
Well, they've all, even when our parents said that, they were angry. I mean.
Yeah, but I felt like they wanted to go another route, and we were rebelling, and these kids are rebelling even more.
Yeah. I think what they wanted was they were angry and they were hoping that they weren't passing their anger on to us.
That's part of it.
Yeah, that's what I believe. I think, and especially in the communities that we came from, that they were hoping that the anger wasn't getting passed on and that all of it was sort of dissipating across all racial lines, and that it would move in another direction. But, you know, no, people were actually just.
There was a lot more hope.
There was, but there's definitely more anger emotionally, internally, than because it's so much more at times, it's so multi-layered.
Which was really more courageous because they saw some things that we didn't see. You know, they grew up in some Jim Crow stuff and, you know, really having I remember my grandparents driving to Georgia and they intentionally brought another couple because they were like, it's not safe to go down there by ourselves right now. And where, you know, I get in the car by myself and drive from California to New York It's things that they saw we didn't see. I guess you could say these police killings are no more different than lynchings, but it's not the same frequency. It's just being filmed now.
Mm.
Correct.
You know?
Well, and then that part actually is in many ways even more heinous because
Exactly.
right, because before you had a lynching and there was this rally, and then there were a different set of rules under which circumstances it could occur. But then now it's occurring, and then there is this undercurrent of that it's actually happening by those who were supposed to be providing safety. There was no confusion before.
Right. But in some ways, that was legal then, and this is legal now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you get away with it, yeah, you might get charged, but you're found not guilty. So, in essence, it's still legal.
You're absolutely correct.
And that's why I said, when few of these cops start getting convicted, then that'll be different. This morning, I went to the grocery store, and Al Sharpton has this radio show, and he's really pushing for this march to pass this George Floyd bill, where it'd be a federal crime for cops to kill someone by putting a knee on their neck or a chokehold or whatever, and how Mitch McConnell probably won't even bring it up for a vote, which means it's still going to be legal.
Right.
And that's where, back to this thing about hope again, like, yeah, you're hoping that this thing passes, but it won't even pass because there won't even be a debate. It won't even be brought up on the floor for a debate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this whole take things in your own hands is happening, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and it's essential. No one, almost never anyone hands over power.
Right.
It's just it's not human. It's not animal. It's just no one generally does.
Believe that. I believe that it's animalistic, but I don't believe that we've adopted it into our culture and society. Animals do it. Animals prime and ready other animals to take their position because they know that they're going.
Yeah, I think to some extent, no gives up power, but when things get really hot,
right,
there are concessions that happen. It could be a bill where, okay, you people can't get loans. Okay, so we'll have this bank give some people some loans. And then, but it's still just crumb after crumb after crumb.
Correct.
And I think like these movements now are like, no, it's over. We want everything.
Correct.
We want everything. Like, no, we want police reform. We want access to banks. We want everything, like all at once. Reparations. People are like, they're like, no, everything stops right now.
Correct.
And it's going to be hard to do the concessions because I think people now are like, I don't want concessions. I want everything. I gotta be free. And I think that's what's different about this movement.
I agree wholeheartedly. That's what's beautiful about it. What would you say is your greatest trait that benefits the world?
I don't know. That's a hard one. That's kind of one that someone else has to answer. But
no.
If I had to answer, I would say, I don't know, like loyalty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's strong.
That is strong. You are loyal. Mm.
Yeah, I remember my mom asking me years ago, why are you friends with that guy? Because when I need him, he comes running.
Yeah. Yeah. You are. You're very loyal. I think another one of your incredibly strong traits is almost like, what do they call those things? I remember we get them in California. They're like little geoscopes. They're almost celestial, and they were like these little, they look like a planet, and then they'd have a constellation that goes around it. But to me, you're like that. So when you can be around a variety of people and a variety of issues can come up, some ridiculous, some very powerful, some very enlightening, but all these things can happen at one time. And I can see you address each one and not really change. So as each one is coming your way, and you invalidate no one in their process. So that to me is,
That's amazing.
It's because Johnny can be friends with so many different people and they feel free. They all open their mouths freely. and it's fascinating to see him. Just, and someone might say, yeah, I'm Yogi the Bear. I was like, okay. Like somebody else may turn around and say, I'm about to run for president. It's like, which platform? And then somebody else will sit there and say, let's have a drink and jump with the sharks. Trying to go, I'll have that drink with you. I'm not sure about sharks, but I'm with you. Like, but and it'll all be happening at the same time. And that to me is an incredible gift that you have.
Thank you. That's a great compliment. But people got to be themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got to, back to these movements, for a time, Courtney, and you remember this probably way back in the day, like, I just felt like I was a separatist. Like, Black people need to go to Black colleges. We need to separate, and that's the only way. And then, when you start evolving, you're like, no, we do need these brothers at Cal Berkeley, and we do need people running for office, and we do need all of these people saying all these different things, because there's no one way to do it. And like Mukasa,
right?
Yeah, like he was like, all these organizations are good. Join the fraternity, join the NAACP, join the Nation of Islam, just get organized. It's about organization. Join a motorcycle club. It's all organization.
Yeah.
And people are all getting to the finish line a different way.
Correct.
But they all want the same thing.
Correct. And that actually to me is one of the things that I love the most as I'm following the movie and I'm, reading the different stories, is that there is an incredible want and an incredible support for individuals touching all these different areas of life. I was watching this video the other day of this young woman who is, what do they call it, clogger? I think it's
tap dancing,
the Irish form of tap dancing.
Yeah, but
river dancing.
River dancing.
I saw that. I saw her.
Isn't it? Right. And
oh, you mean that little TikTok where she's holding the baby?
No.
I swear.
No.
I saw her in this river dance group, invited her to come and perform with them.
Correct.
And they had a lot of these Irish folks that are like, no, she's not being true to the culture. But what I really liked about her was her answer. She was beyond her years. She's like, no, I'm not copying the culture. I'm respecting this culture.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make this something other than what it is.
Right.
This is what it is, and they're inviting me into it. I'm not trying to change anything.
Right. And that was what I loved about it the most, is that when I read and watched the same thing, that sometimes there is this want of, well, we weren't let in, so let me go in there and blow it up and change it. And it's like, why? I mean, it's beautiful in its own form, just like we want our own form. But she was just, one, so honored to be there and be invited. Number two, she just loved the form.
Yeah.
And watching the joy on her face when she danced, I mean, I rarely see that kind of stuff. I think I watched that video like 3 times.
Yeah, she's
And,
awesome.
but to me, again, there is especially right now an energetic and and it's almost like an undertow at a beach, and there's an undertow underneath where it's especially a time for you do what you love and bring it to the table. And I didn't feel that way when I was young. And but I feel that it's existing now, and that is phenomenal, because, you know, and I probably said this in another video, someone had said to me, they were like, well, how could you go to a Spelman college because, you know, it lacks diversity? I said, no, there's immense diversity there. There's more diversity than you could ever realize is happening, you know, among that 2,000 people. And if they're allowed to be diverse, then everyone will benefit in this world.
Yeah.
So
it is really diverse, a whole lot of different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you look at the protests, do you how many hours a day do you spend looking at either the protests or political? How much?
I was consumed with it for a while, and now I don't know, reading or watching the news maybe an hour or two a day.
Okay.
And you know, I'm seeing something different now. It seems like a lot of these networks are now associating, and I didn't think this would. Well, I didn't know if it would happen. I never thought about it, but it seems like a lot of these news outlets are trying to now associate Black Lives Matter with black on black crime. And it's a thing where, well, this movement was started about police brutality. You know, this movement wasn't about black on black crime. So you can't conflate the two. They're two different things. You know, if you want to start a movement about black on black crime, that's something different. This is not about black on black crime. But it's all getting lumped together. And I think that's really unfortunate. But you know, you got these protests going on and people getting arrested, and you know, there's a rise in crime right now, so they see the violence at the protests and they're like, okay, what's the same thing? It's still just violence. But they're two different things altogether.
Well, but that's just you. I mean, you know this better than I do. I mean, that's just a tactic to dissolve the energy and dissolve the power of it and dilute it.
Yeah, so it could make that movement weaker and focus on something that has nothing to do with the movement.
Right. Or give people who want nothing to do with the movement something to, you know, attach to.
Yep.
So, but it is phenomenal to see cell after cell. One of my favorite things to do is I go on and I'll go on Instagram and I'll add a hashtag, just the literal hashtag, and then I'll start one word, Black. And then I may add one other like consonant. And I love to see what else pops up under it. And then pressing those hashtags to see what shows up. And it's, you know, it's beautiful to see as it is catching across the country in different cities, and what the different cities are focusing on, what, you know, what core issues that they've decided. And that in itself is phenomenal, because there is not one voice. Going back to your point, they have, you know, they're locking down on key issues that affect each, you know, each region, each different area. I think one of the things that also happens, and I think it happens internally, for sure it happens externally in terms of other countries, but I think one of the things that happens is Americans really have no idea how big America is.
Yeah, or how small it is too. You know, like you can fit 3 Americas on the continent of Africa. Like they don't realize
Right.
how small it is too. But it is a big, big place. You know, when you talk to folks in New York, Chicago, Atlanta, San Francisco about certain political issues, it's like, yeah, but we, meaning living here in New York or Atlanta, we live in a bubble, like an extreme bubble, and you don't realize that you could drive 40 minutes, 45 minutes in any direction, and it's another world,
Correct.
and that's most of the country. So when you live in these big cities, you're like, well, I don't understand. Like, what is the deal? Why can't people wear masks? You know, like, what's wrong with these people? Because we're in this bubble where we think that everybody thinks like us.
Correct.
And, you know, you drive somewhere and you might see some weird signs or something real crazy when you're driving through New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we still live in this bubble because we live in these cities and you know, you don't visit South Dakota, you know,
Yeah.
and don't want to. It's like, so I think you got to realize too, like those people are like, I don't care what's going on in Chicago. I'm not going to Chicago. I have no desire to go to Chicago. So it is very big. It is a very big country.
And that part also makes it difficult for unification.
Yeah.
Because there is, you know, we already know that, you know, one of our states, you know, one or two states can comprise 2-3 countries in Europe.
Yeah.
And I think that often gets overlooked in the conversation, that there's that there should be an understanding that someone is easily 1,000 miles away from you and they can still be in your same state. They could be in a completely different climate. They can have a completely different economic events that are happening in their city. And, you know, and those are the things that affect movements. They're, you know, the geographic,
Yeah, like you have
whether they're employed or not, whether, you know, whether there's some type of even pestilence, or even, you know, there's so many things that affect a movement that sometimes I think a lot of people forget.
yeah, and even in the movement, or like you said, like these states are bigger than certain countries. So, you know, a European comes to America and they're like, you guys only speak English. But I think we don't realize that their country is, you know, if you're in Chicago, I mean, Illinois, you go to Indiana, it's another country and another language. You go to Wisconsin, you know, they're both an hour away and they're speaking a totally different language, but they're so close to you and they overlap. Yeah, you're going to be speaking a couple of languages.
Mm.
You just have to, because you're so close to everybody.
Correct.
So if you're in Wisconsin and for tens of thousands of miles away from you, there's only English being spoken. You know, you only speak English.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. It's a whole different ballgame.
It really is. Do you have any questions for us?
No, I love what you guys are doing though.
We appreciate it.
You know, I do. I saw your video with your brother. I was like, this stuff is kind of cool. You're onto something.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like I always say, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it.
Right.
You know, I don't know where this is going, but keep doing it. It's going somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think is going to, like when you mentioned Al Sharpton, and this would be my last, I mean, we're losing them. We don't have very many of that generation of political leaders left.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's going to step up. They always do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a criticism of our generation, like that You know, they're not grooming anybody. You know, they're not grooming the next person. Somebody's coming if they're not here already, and if not, this thing will operate like Black Lives Matter, and it'll just be cells operating. You know, a lot of times this stuff, you know, you get a leader that really sells you out. You know, sometimes I like what these kids are doing, and I shouldn't say kids. We're all involved we're all in this movement, but somebody's coming. I mean, you got a lot of young leaders coming up. You know, all these Black women that are mayors of these cities. I mean, they're here. They're not even being groomed. They're doing the grooming. You know, they're doing a great job, all of them. So, you know, I think that it could be the next one is probably going to be a woman.
Hopefully.
Or I even like the concept of what you're saying in terms of our generation. They were like, well, who's it going to be? Maybe our generation was supposed to be the sandwich to demonstrate that it doesn't have to happen.
Yeah.
You know, you know, that maybe that was what that transition was about. You know, there was so much pain. And I mean, there's, you know, record after record, there's, you know, spoken word after spoken word, poetry after poetry. Where's Malcolm? Where, you know, I can hear it, you know, ringing. And maybe that was the natural progression, and that's beautiful. Maybe we needed them. Maybe we needed them to do those things and to see the power of losing them, and how much that just made everything stop for it to then evolve into, well, there's no one we're going to get behind. Because I remember that, you know, 25, 30 years ago, you know, I don't want to bring up but, you know, there, you know, someone would pop up, but no, we wouldn't really get behind him, and someone else. And maybe part of that was its own level of pain of not wanting to see it. Or as the numbers grew, we weren't available. Even talking about size, you talk about an incredible movement, you know, and I rather, you know, you want to talk about the Germans, or whether you want to talk about, you know, these different, you know, even when you talk about South, when you start talking about these people that have been in power, that's a finite amount of people that they were able to organize and mobilize to get under a single cause and be affected by it in such an emotional way. And so then now, going to your point, you know, even as you illuminated, even with the South Side of Chicago, it's now you're talking about just one part of a city being 1 million people. That's huge.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where this evolution is, and that it has the ability, which of course, a lot of women generally have the ability to do, to be able to work in a team, to be able to get information disseminated, to be able to make, you know, decisions. And maybe that is where this is going. And maybe that is the natural progression. And we know that there's a natural progression anyways of women who are going to be in power and much more effective.
Hey, it's true.
You know, in terms of the overall, in terms of balance between, you know, action and emotion and efficiency and nurturing.
I was talking to a friend that she went to Howard, and they had this ranking of Black schools, and she felt like Howard should have been above Spelman. Spelman was number one, and she said, well, that's just because they're all women. She's like, if we got rid of all these guys at Howard, we'd be number one. It was kind of funny,
Right.
but it was kind of funny. When I thought about it, I was like, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, she said it as a joke, but it was actually kind of funny.
She's kind of not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. So, What you think, Pop?
I think this has been a great one.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And what about, so then this is my last one because I've been asking this one more lately. So as a cause to the pandemic and you living in a city, because there's so many African Americans who have migrated to cities because one, they migrate, you know, it's great migration, they're going for a job, they're going, you know, to be around other Black people, and it seemed to be more safe as well, being in larger numbers in cities. But now that this pandemic has occurred, where is it that you feel that you want to flow? Do you want to stay in the New York area, or do you feel more inclined to move out and do a little homesteading? What have things changed for you?
Yeah, the appeal is kind of leaving, and partly because of the pandemic. I mean, New York, I think, was hit a lot harder because of some other factors. One, it's like we didn't know this thing was coming from Europe. They just thought it was China. But the West Coast was shut down. It's closer to China. You know, San Francisco was one of the first cities to shut down, and it was affected. And New York didn't realize that this thing was coming from Europe here. And you put that on top of people living on top of each other and packed on a subway and all that. It's just it was just a powder keg, and it was going to explode, and it did. I mean, we were averaging 800 deaths a day in New York City alone.
Man.
And last week was the first day that they reported 0 deaths for one day, and then the next day was just 1 death. So, you know, it took a while, but the appeal of something like that, not the appeal, but the attraction to being in a city like that is kind of fading, because I was like, wow, there could be another one that comes. And you don't know because you're here, you know, you're in the mix of it. And the appeal of, you know, being able to grow your own food, you know, a little bit of your own food, and not have to tell the neighbors to be quiet, and, you know, just having a little space is much more appealing right now.
Mm-hmm. I agree wholeheartedly. I also think, of course, you know, the digital movement had kind of forward that in a way, because, you know, not even in a way, but that you have,
from your computer, yeah.
yeah, and I believe that it can bring a much more wholesome and just insular way of life for many people, where I think that where they can feel much better about themselves.
Yeah, you get more in touch with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, Farmer John.
Yeah, I've never grown anything to eat, but I don't know if I'd be good at it, but I'm willing to try.
What are you making today, Johnny?
I just sent us a picture.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Darn. Where
I
is it?
made that a couple weeks ago, but you have your phone nearby?
I do not. I don't bring it in.
Oh, darn it.
Here, I'll send it to you right now, Courtney.
Okay, yeah, send it to me. I want to see. What'd you make yesterday while you're sending that?
No, I went to Abdul's mother's party.
Oh, okay.
So they had he barbecued chicken, and they had pastrami and
Ooh, pastrami.
yeah, the Muslim folks eat the.
Oh,
I think it may have been lamb pastrami. That's such
really?
Yeah.
Yam. Okay. It's
You
not.
get it?
No. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Is that a trout?
That's a whole snapper. I mean, a whole salmon.
Oh, it is, because look, it's taking up the whole barbecue grill.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks phenomenal. Look at the coloring on it. You butterflied it yourself, huh?
No. Chinatown.
Oh, Chinatown did. It's beautiful. Very well done. What kind of spices are those?
Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, okay. We won't do that for the, okay. All right. It looks beautiful. Did you
But there
smoke
is
it?
a little, part of the coloring is a little turmeric in there.
Oh, okay. Yep. Did you smoke it?
Yep.
That's
We've
nice.
got lump charcoals in the bottom and apple chips on top.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, since you smoked it, that means I
Low and
can
slow. Yep.
I could get some through the mail and not die.
Hey, New York isn't going anywhere.
Good answer. Good answer. All right. With that, we'll wrap up. Johnny, one of the things that we ask everyone is to look in that camera and say, I love myself.
I love myself.
Yeah. Yes, you do, Johnny Drake.
I love myself too.
I love myself too.
And I love you guys too.
Love you, Johnny.
I love you very much, Johnny Drake.
You all have fun and stay safe.
All right, you too.
Man, it's crazy.
It is.
Mhm.
Stay safe.
Mhm. Hold on 1 second. Thank you very much for joining us for another episode of Coming Into Grace, presented by Love Myself Fix, hosted by Ash's Fix and Courtney's Fix. Thank you so much. Knowing who we are and loving ourselves for it. See you next time.
All right. Have fun.
All right. Bye, Johnny.